do you cook a yogi? Well, Ananda talks about gatasta yoga, and this is the kumbha, is the pot, is the yogi. Now, when I was taking my first infant steps in yoga, I was also studying to be a potter. And it struck me that actually these two things are very similar. For example, a potter starts with a lump of clay which has no form, and he finishes up with this beautiful piece of art, or something that can be used and that is nice and firm and has shape and beauty. And a yogi starts off with pretty formless mind, quite often really formless, and ends up with something that's also a thing of beauty, a mind that is crystal clear, hopefully, and capable of finding samadhi. So a potter starts with a lump of clay, and his first act is to knead all the impurities out. So he's removing the bubbles of air, and he's also trying to make the clay a nice texture. Well, the yogi does the same thing. He starts with the yamas, the first of the 8 steps according to Patanjali. And he's got to go through all these things, the ahimsa, all the 5. There are 5, you can look that up anyway. And what he's doing is he's trying to rid himself of the impurities. He's trying to improve his attitude towards the outside world, but also for purifying himself. Meanwhile, the potter, he takes his lump of clay that he's got nice and tidy, and he throws it into the centre of his wheel, and he spends a little time with a bit of water on it, trying to get it nice and central. The yogi's doing the same thing with the niyamas. This time he's concentrating on his attitude and what he does, how he does it. The potter, meanwhile, puts his thumb right into the middle of his, and he uses his skill to draw the pot out, to make a big well in the centre and start to form the pot by drawing up the sides. And this is the yogi doing his asanas. He's working on his body, on the physical self, to try and improve, to make something of beauty. The potter really works to form the pot and make a nice lip, and he's using both hands, working hard to shape it with all his skill. Meanwhile, the yogi is working on his pranayama, working on how to infuse his body with the prana, with the life force, so that when he just does his asana, it's not just gymnastics, but something much more powerful, so that he can really move the energy, prana. The potter takes the piece of clay that he's formed into a pot, very carefully removes it from the wheel and places it somewhere to dry. And it has to dry it to a perfect state so that it doesn't over dry, and then he can turn it upside down and form the base. He turns the foot. And the yogi is doing exactly the same thing with pratyahara. He has to refine his senses so that they can become detached from the object of the senses. So for me, this is the equivalent of the potter turning the wheel. It's the refinement, the finishing touches. And then comes the exciting bit. For the potter, he's putting his pot in the kiln, and he does the first firing. While the yogi, on his side, is entering into a state of dharana, where he's concentrating, focusing his whole mind, his whole being on a point. The potter, it depends on what kind of clay he's chosen, but he might do a second firing, and this is where he might also decorate it. So we get a second firing, and this is where the yogi moves into dhyana. So being merely focused and concentrating, he's now moving much more deeply. He's going beyond that simple concentration, maybe moving into what could almost be called meditation. And finally, the magical moment arrives for the potter when he takes his pot out of the kiln where it's been fired to really high temperatures, sometimes 1,200 degrees. It's hot. And he produces this beautiful pot. He places it there, Now it's a useful thing, but it's also beautiful. The magical moment for the yogi is when from dharana he's moved into dhyana, and now, maybe if he's very lucky, he can move into samadhi. And that is how